Yes, sir. Private soldier. Just came in from the frontier.
We shall call for our father.
Thank you, sir.
I cannot help but notice that many of these men seem to have an excellent laundry.
So
I have
we've
not
had
seen such white trousers and breeches in some time.
a little bit of time to clean up for the day's celebration.
I was beginning to wonder how many of your men might be new.
Some of them are new recruits.
Perhaps not all of them are new. Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Very well done. And who was in charge of their training?
Lieutenant Nam and our sergeants, Sergeant McCabe, Sergeant Wagner.
Should be very proud of the work that she's done here.
Thank you, sir.
I would ask that you put your men at ease.
Take care. As you were. Order. Rest.
Welcome, and happy Independence Day. So good to see so many of you back with us today. I would ask that you make sure your men do not fire upon any across that have chosen red as their color today.
We will be careful, sir.
Shortly we will hear read the Declaration of July 4th of 1776. Now, this document may be very well known to you. But if you can imagine, upon the day that it arrived in my hand, I had been told that the debate of independence was going forward. I knew that that was likely going to be the outcome. But this document was not what I was prepared for. In fact, what I saw before me was not only a declaration of independence, but was a declaration of who we intended to be and what type of government we were going to form. A government that had rights at its very beginning, and that would discuss not a rule by a king or a queen, but that we could govern ourselves. I knew at that moment that my army was no longer an army fighting for its English rights, but it was now an army upon which the fate of unborn millions would live. It was a short time before I had the Declaration read before my men, and I did not know how they would respond upon that day. But when they heard those words, and they heard the conclusion before the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Those men lined up in New York began to cheer and raise their hats and congratulate each other. This was very much so the birth of something new. Not several different colonies that had come together to support each other, but the birth of the United States of America. It is my great pleasure now to call forth someone to read those words. And I ask that you listen carefully and recognize that while we may not have always lived up to the expectations that we have put in this document, This is not a declaration of who we were, or even who we are, but it is always the declaration of who we wish to be. And I don't believe I need to name the distinguished gentleman who walks towards me. But these words I ask that you listen to, and while you can hear a list of grievances, you will hear that there is something much deeper than those merely that were our causes for war. They are our cause to come together.
Sir. Order! Fire!
Order, hard! All out.
My seats reserved for the
Good morning and welcome. If you would like the advantage of one of the seats, please grab them. Otherwise, permission to seek out shade. Also, we encourage all of you to help yourself now or later to the bottled water that has been graciously provided by Mount Vernon to the right under the stage in what we call the Liberty Tree. My name is Richard Rankin, and I have the privilege of serving as the Vice President of the George Washington Chapter, Virginia Society, Sons of the American Revolution. I know that we have many guests this morning, and in addition, there may be members of the general public listening in. And we welcome you to join us, so that I thought it would be a good idea to say just a word or two about who we are and why we are gathered here on this remarkable day. The Sons of the American Revolution is a patriotic, educational, and historical organization dedicated to preserving the memory and legacy of those courageous men and women who fought for the independence our nation celebrates today. Each of our members has traced his ancestry back one or more patriots who fought in or provided substantial support during the revolution of the fateful years of 1775 to 1783. Almost 60 years ago, at the insistence of the great-grandson of Alexander Hamilton, the George Washington Chapter began this tradition of laying a wreath at the tomb of our chapter namesake on the 4th of July. And we are delighted to have you join us to prepare the honor for the father of our country once again. As we begin our ceremony, I would like to express my deep appreciation to George Washington's Mount Vernon exemplary event staff, and particularly Joan Flintoff, Jason Rusk, and where did she go? Jenny's over there. Without their forbearance, patience, and expert support, none of this would have been possible today. So thank you again. At this time, I would ask that all of you please stand. Most of you are, but the rest of you please stand. I call upon Dr. Don Reynolds, chaplain of the George Washington Chapter, to deliver the invocation.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come together today at the home of our first president, George Washington, to celebrate Independence Day. The 4th of July commemorates the moment the 13 colonies separated from a distant foreign power to become a prosperous and leading nation of the world. We thank our revolutionary ancestors who had the courage to break away to establish a representative form of government. We pray that today our people will always do what is right and fair in this world to maintain our good fortune. This we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Reynolds. I now call upon Isaac Bodge, President of the Lighthorse Harry Lee Society and State Librarian of the Virginia Society, Children of the American Revolution, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Isaac.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. I now call upon John Blair, National Registrar, Society of the Washington Family Descendants, and member of the George Washington chapter, to lead us in the C.A.R. pledge.
We, the descendants of the heroes of the American Revolution, who by their sacrifices established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in the principles of liberty and our constitutional republic, and solemnly pledge ourselves to defend them against every foe. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Compatriots, esteemed daughters, and members of the C.A.R. family and guests, I'm delighted to welcome all of you here today. Please be seated. I'm sorry. Please be seated for those who are seated. As the Master of Ceremonies, I seem to have two primary duties. The first is to provide appropriate recognition to our attendees and guests. The second is to finish on time by 11 a.m. These two objectives will be challenged by the wonderful turnout we've had this morning. I will begin with the Sons of the American Revolution. We in the George Washington chapter are doing our part to make sure that this first guest has no free weekends or holidays during his entire tenure in office. I would now ask that Jeff Thomas, President of the Virginia Society, Sons of the American Revolution, step forward to bring greetings.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is my honor to bring greetings on behalf of the Virginia Sons of the American Revolution, our 29 chapters and over 2,200 members on this Independence Day commemoration. What a wonderful day and what a wonderful place to celebrate our freedoms at the home and final resting place of George Washington, Commander of the Continental Army, President of the United States, and Father of our country. Virginia played a leading role in our nation's Declaration of Independence. The Virginia C.A.R. seal here on my lapel commemorates Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, and George Washington, the voice, the pen, and the sword of the Revolution. Henry lent his voice for liberty at St. John's Church in 1775. Jefferson lent his pen for liberty as the author of our independence, and Washington carried the sword of liberty throughout the war for independence. However, only Jefferson signed the Declaration of Independence. Henry would leave Congress to become Virginia's first wartime governor, and Washington left to take command of the Continental Forces. Even so, 7 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were from Virginia. 3 of these signers were wartime governors of Virginia: Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Nelson Jr., and Benjamin Harrison V. Richard Henry Lee introduced the motion for independence in the Second Continental Congress and was joined by his brother Francis Lightfoot Lee as signers. George Wythe, Thomas Jefferson's mentor and teacher, who replaced George Washington in Congress, and Carter Braxton, who invested much of his financial fortune in the war effort, were also signers. All of these men lived out their words and the oath that they signed, pledging to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. As we celebrate our independence this day, let us remember the contributions of these men who truly gave all for liberty, and let us keep George Washington foremost in our mind this day, as he was eulogized by Richard Henry Lee as first in war, first in peace, first in the heart of his countrymen.
Thank you, President Thomas. We would also like to recognize our other Virginia State officers in attendance today. Please hold your applause until all have been announced. Ernie Coggins, Second Vice President. Thomas Roth, Vassar Historian. Reverend Dr. Eugene Thomas, Vassar Chaplain, and Ken Bonner, Vassar Color Guard Commander. If you would show your appreciation. We are also honored to welcome Dr. Michael Weiler, Governor of the Virginia Society, Order of the Founders and the Patriots of America. Dr. Weiler is also a former president of the Colonel William Grayson chapter. Please join us in welcoming Dr. Weiler. Now, I would like to recognize the C.A.R. chapter presidents that we have in attendance. Again, please hold your applause until all have been announced. Tom Roth, President George Washington. David Cook, President Fairfax Resolve. Ken Morris, President George Mason. David Cook, President Thomas Jefferson. And Gary Pridgeon, President Norfolk. I wish to recognize the remaining C.A.R. chapters represented today, Colonel William Grayson and the Culpeper Minutemen. Gentlemen, thank you for your attendance, and please welcome these chapter presidents. On behalf of the George Washington chapter, I would also like to welcome Craig Smith, President of the John Hanson chapter, Maryland Society of the Sons of the American Revolution, who is with us today. We are honored to have all of you here today. Finally, I would like to recognize our past George Washington chapter presidents that are here in attendance. Please hold your applause until all have been announced. Don Reynolds, David Walker, President Emeritus, Mike Elston, Dwight Whitney, Greg Bodge, Ernie Coggins, and Jay Henn. Gentlemen, we follow in your footsteps. You may now applaud. Over the years, but especially at this event, we have enjoyed incredible support from the Daughters of the American Revolution. Your strong presence at today's event is a testament of your commitment to honor our American Revolution heritage. Due to an ongoing D.A.R. event today, the State Regent of Virginia, Mrs. Leanne Turbyfill, could not join us but sends her regrets. We are extremely fortunate that the State Vice Regent of Virginia, Ms. Lori Nesbitt, will be presenting greetings on behalf of the D.A.R. Madam State Vice Regent, would you please bring greetings?
I think. I'm the Virginia State Vice Regent, and on behalf of the nearly 10,000 Virginia daughters and President State Regent, there's something about being a mother, you just... Anyway, I bring greetings on behalf of Leanne Turbyfill. She would have been here, but it was the end of our Continental Congress downtown and very important. A few years ago, I saw a documentary that posited, what if George Washington had been killed early in the Revolutionary War? What would have happened? Spoiler alert, probably our independence effort would have died either with him or shortly after. Of the other founding fathers, great though they were, especially the Virginians, none had the combination of skills and abilities that Washington had. And while he didn't win every battle, he won the war, he kept the army together, and that led to our independence. Once the war was over, nobody else had his respect, and the skills still to serve as well as he did as our first president, keeping it all together despite contradictory philosophies and personalities. Years after his death, when the North and the South were at each other's throats, both sides still revered George Washington. It is very hard to overestimate his importance to American history. And the Virginia Daughters are honored to be here today to help honor his memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam State Vice Regent. We would also like to recognize our other Virginia State officers in attendance. Please hold your applause until all have been announced. District 5 Director, Dr. Charla Rouse. District 8 Director, Margaret Stromberg. District 9 Vice Director, Susan Harvin. Thank you, ladies, for being with us today. I would now like to recognize the current D.A.R. chapter regents in attendance this morning. All 14 regents are present today, have been listed on the July 4th program insert as distinguished guests. We are extremely grateful for your presence today and on this important observance. Let's please share our applause for these 14 regents with us today. Finally, on behalf of the George Washington chapter, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to all of the other D.A.R. chapters represented here today. Freedom Hill chapter and Falls of the Rappahannock chapter. Please welcome me in welcoming those also. Finally, the children of the American Revolution. As members of a legacy organization, the C.A.R. and D.A.R. have a special responsibility to encourage and support our legacy. The members of the Children of the American Revolution. You have already been introduced to Isaac Bodge as he delivered the Pledge of Allegiance, but we are also joined by Sarah Cox, President, Virginia Society, Children of the American Revolution, Justin Thomas, Second Vice President, Virginia Society, Children of the American Revolution, and Anna Cox, President, Colonel Alexander Spotsworth Society, Virginia Society, Children of the American Revolution. Recognition is also due to the many seniors, those adults who invest their time, their energy, their fortunes to support this great organization. Stacy Wasichowski, Senior State President, Bonnie Henn, Senior Second Vice President, Paul Cox, Senior Society President, Mike Elston, former Senior State President. Please join me in showing our appreciation for these outstanding members and supporters of C.A.R. Recruiting alert, and this is true for most of you here today. If you have children or grandchildren, they're eligible for C.A.R. So don't delay, let's get them signed up. Again, to all the attendees and guests, thank you for celebrating with us on this magnificent occasion. I'm going to take one break. It's starting to get a little warm, and I'm starting to get very human. It's now my pleasure to welcome our current chapter president, Tom Roth. Over the past 20 years, Tom has been a resident of Alexandria, having relocated here from North Carolina. Tom has been active in the George Washington chapter since 2013. In addition to supporting our chapter, he has taken on the additional role of being historian for the Virginia Society since 2018. He was born and raised in Elkin on the Yadkin River in northwest North Carolina. He received his A.B. in history from Davidson College and subsequently attended Wake Forest University School of Law. Following law school, Tom practiced law in Winston-Salem and later relocated to Alexandria, serving for years as original member and chair of the local Bars Association Continuing Legal Education Committee. Tom is currently admitted to the bar in North Carolina in the District of Columbia. His practice has been very focused on local real estate management, brokerage, and development firms. His professional affiliations include memberships in the American Corporate Councils Association. He has a long history of civic activities and was once recognized as the 40 outstanding young leaders under 40 in Northwest North Carolina by the Greensboro JCs in 2001. He's been very gracious to allow me to amend his introduction because we're just a tad behind on our schedule. But I want you to know that Tom is also a very active member in the St. Albans Church in D.C., where he serves on the Archives and History Committee. When he's not working or traveling on C.A.R. events, does that ever happen? Tom enjoys photography, exploring natural and historical landscapes of Northern Virginia, Maryland by foot, car, and bicycle. Through his father, Tom is a descendant of the patriot Edward Schimmer, who served as a captain in the Northampton County, Pennsylvania militia, and as a member of the General Committee or Committee of Safety in the Northampton County. Through his mother, Tom is a descendant of the patriot Henry Jarboe III of St. Mary's County, down the River of Peace, who signed the Maryland Oath of Fidelity and Support along with his sons in 1778. His family is very proud of his patriot roots, and a branch of the Over Mountain Victory National Historical Trail runs through the old Roth family homestead in Elkin, North Carolina, on an easement provided by his family. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in welcoming George Washington Chapter President Tom Roth.
Good morning. I'm going to attempt to, shorten my remarks today just a little bit due to our time constraints. But I wanted to talk to you briefly today about a gentleman who's better known in North Carolina than in Virginia, although he was born in Virginia. His name is Wiley Jones. Wiley Jones was raised in the highest echelons of the plantation aristocracy in northeastern North Carolina. His father was Lord Granville's land agent. He was educated in England. He was, and when he came back to the colonies, he became highly associated with Governor Tryon and Governor Martin. He was actually an aide-de-camp to Governor Tryon at the Battle of Alamance. But sometime around 1774, he had a conversion experience of some variety, and he rejected an appointment by Josiah Martin to the North Carolina Governor's Council. At that point, he became the principal leader, and is sometimes called the Thomas Jefferson of North Carolina, of the most populous political faction in the Revolutionary era of North Carolina, supporting local democratic government and a weak executive, was opposed to foreign control and a strong central government. During the Revolution, he was active in all the North Carolina political activities. He was one of the lead drafters of the original North Carolina Constitution in 1776 and was the last president of the North Carolina Council of Safety prior to the election of our first governor. But his true claim to national significance was his role as leader of the Anti-Federalists while a delegate to the Hillsborough Convention of 1788, called to ratify the U.S. Constitution. All the delegates knew by then that the Constitution had been ratified. However, Wiley and his colleagues feared that the stronger centralized power and lack of a Declaration of Rights would lead to loss of local and individual liberty. Indeed, Wiley had refused an appointment to the Constitutional Convention, and as you know, this was a widespread concern. Several states, Virginia included, had actually listed proposed amendments they wanted actually submitted after ratification. However, in North Carolina, the Anti-Federalists were much stronger than that, and two of our delegates to the Constitutional Convention actually withdrew from the convention and did not sign. So when the Hillsborough Convention came along, the supporters of the Constitution were worried, and they were not disappointed. The very first motion made by Willie Jones, or Wiley Jones, was to dispense with debate and go ahead straight to a vote. This motion was not carried, and so they spent approximately 10 days debating the Constitution clause by clause. But it became very clear as time passed that few minds had been changed, and that the Constitution would not be accepted. And at this point, Mr. Jones came up and proposed that instead of rejecting the Constitution outright, because he did believe that a union of some variety was important, that instead that North Carolina submit a list of amendments to be considered by Congress and the states before North Carolina would ratify the Constitution. The Hillsborough Convention adopted this resolution by a vote of 184 to 84. The list of amendments that were submitted were virtually the same as those proposed the month before by the Virginia Convention, consisting of a Declaration of Rights of 20 items and other amendments numbering 26. As a result, North Carolina was not part of the United States when George Washington was elected president, nor when the first Congress assembled. But its absence arguably had much to do with the Bill of Rights being among the first business taken up by the U.S. Congress, within 2 months of achieving its quorum in April of 1789. And so later in the year 1789, in November, after the Bill of Rights had been submitted to the states, a second ratification convention was held, this time in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and the Constitution was ratified. Now, many in North Carolina feel that Wiley Jones should be called the true father of the Bill of Rights, since his proposals, by keeping North Carolina out, gave real urgency to consideration and adoption of the Bill of Rights. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, President Roth. The C.A.R. sponsors a wide variety of youth programs that support and advance the Society's patriotic, historical, and educational goals. One of these programs is the Joseph S. Rumbaugh Historical Oration Contest, conducted by the C.A.R. since 1947. The Rumbaugh Oration Contest is open to all students during their high school years. Each contestant has a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 6 minutes with no notes, to present an oration on a topic that is based on a compelling Revolutionary War subject that is directly related to current national interests and patriotism. Initial rounds of the contest are held at the chapter level. Winners then compete at the state level. State level winners then compete at the National C.A.R. Congress. It is my great privilege to welcome this year's Virginia State winner, Ms. Lauren Bradshaw, who will present her winning oration. Lauren is a homeschooled rising senior who came to our attention when she and her sister made a presentation to an C.A.R. chapter meeting about an old headstone that they discovered had turned out to be the grave of a Revolutionary War soldier.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm excited to be here today. The voice, the pen, and the sword of the American Revolution were all born right here in the great colony of Virginia. Virginia was one of the largest and most influential and the most wealthy colony in the 13 colonies, and it had immense political influence. Revolutionary sentiments began here around 1763, and early on they were kindled by men like Patrick Henry. Although few battles were actually fought on Virginian soil, we contributed money and troops to other colonies and had remarkable political power. That power stemmed from men like the great George Washington, George Mason, James Madison, and Thomas Jefferson. But while history honors these men as our founding fathers, the contributions of ordinary Virginia soldiers often go unrecognized. Have you ever heard of James Armistead Lafayette or Jack Jewett? These two had influential contributions in one of the final years of the Revolutionary War, in 1781. They undoubtedly changed the course of history, and they may have even changed the outcome of the entire war. So the first of these everyday patriots is James Armistead Lafayette. He was actually born into slavery in New Kent, Virginia, and in 1781 he joined the military under the Marquis de Lafayette. He was immediately recruited as a spy and then sent to the camp of the traitor Benedict Arnold to spy while posing as a runaway slave. His knowledge of the local train helped him gain the trust of Benedict Arnold, and he was then sent to serve under General Cornwallis himself. General Cornwallis also trusted Armistead and actually asked him to spy on behalf of the British. Thus, James Armistead became one of America's first double agents, passing false information to the British while getting intelligence about their troop positions and movements. While working in Cornwallis's headquarters, he was able to hear conversations and plans that officers were making. He wrote down all of his observations and dispatches that he sent to Lafayette. In fact, he actually formed a really close connection with the Marquis. James Armistead's information about British forces at Yorktown in October of 1781 allowed the Americans to build a blockade and win the battle. Unfortunately, after the Revolutionary War, James Armistead was sent back to slavery despite his contributions to the cause. But in 1786, he was able to gain his freedom with the help of an endorsement letter from Lafayette himself. Now, our second patriot is named Jack Jewett, a captain in the Virginia militia. In January of 1781, General Cornwallis ordered Benedict Arnold to launch a full-scale invasion of Virginia. The British plundered Richmond, and perhaps most importantly, they planned to capture and kill Thomas Jefferson and other members of the Virginia legislature. Now, luckily in January, the men managed to escape and they went to Jefferson's home, Monticello, which is in Charlottesville. They were safe for now, but the British tried again several months later. They planned a second surprise raid on Monticello, which was to be led by a lieutenant colonel named Tarleton. Along with Thomas Jefferson, founding fathers like Patrick Henry and Richard Henry Lee were in danger. Now, Jack Jewett was 26 years old and living in Charlottesville at the time. On June 3rd, 1781, he was roused from a nap at a local tavern in Louisa County by the British column rushing past the inn. Luckily, he was able to guess what they were doing, and his response was to jump on his horse, Sally, and rush towards Monticello to warn the assemblyman. He completed the 40-mile ride in roughly 7 hours, moving all night through brush and brambles. Legend says that when he arrived early the next morning, he was covered in blood and bruises from his harrowing journey. Luckily, he arrived on time to warn the assemblymen, and they were able to escape. Apparently, Thomas Jefferson himself was fairly unconcerned about the British, slowly gathering his papers and even drinking wine before leaving the property. Nevertheless, Jack Jewett is credited with saving the lives of several prominent Virginians. He was later commended for his efforts and is sometimes called the Paul Revere of the South. So the colony of Virginia was very influential in the outcome of the Revolutionary War. Its early political leaders are now known as our founding fathers, and it has a strong history of patriotism. But there are many contributions from ordinary soldiers that often go overlooked. Both James Armistead Lafayette and Jack Jewett are never mentioned in historic sites and at museums. James Armistead is so unknown that his birth and death dates are disputed. Jack Jewett is mentioned in an article from the Monticello site, but that has not been updated since 2006. These men and many other ordinary heroes like them changed the course of history. Museums and historic sites such as this should feature the ordinary heroes as well as the extraordinary leaders as they work to preserve the history of our American Revolution. Thank you.
C.A.R. You, sir, are you directing the ceremony for the C.A.R.? They're coming. All right. Great. Just let these people please have a moment. Thank you.
Mark time, march.
And then
March.
so you're organizing the event. Here's your podium. That is
Hold
your
on.
wreath.
Halt.
Those are your carnations. I will remove our wreath.
Left and right face.
You may not go past the road. That's in front of the door. All right, thank you, sir.
Nice to be amongst patriots. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you make your way to honor General George Washington on this Day of Independence. Jeff Thomas, Vassar President, and Tom Roach, George Washington Chapter President, would like you to, will you please advance to the tomb and present the wreath.
Present arms.
Thank you, gentlemen. I now ask Dr. Charla Rouse and Mrs. Stacy Wasichowski to present the pink carnations at the tomb of Martha Washington.
Shoulder arms.
Is anyone coming forward to do this? Here are the pink carnations.
Maybe you just put them in the bucket right over there.
Pink carnations in honor of Martha Custis Washington.
So they can do it. Thank you, ladies. We now ask George Washington Chapter member John Eastley and his father Charles to approach the tomb and pay your respects and lay a red carnation at the tomb. Thank you, gentlemen. We now ask the remaining SAR members, 2 by 2, to receive a carnation and pay your respects at the tomb.
Order hard. Other SAR members?
So here's the key.
Well, we got one for you.
Where's Will? Up front. Oh, there you go.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tom. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Is this C.A.R.? Yes, these are. This is. You're welcome. You, sir? Okay. That's good leadership there.
We now call upon the C.A.R. members to receive a carnation and pay their respects at the tomb.
Watch our line of sight right behind you. We're filming.
Thank you. I just don't want it. Thank
Ladies? Okay, sure. Guarded with this. On the far side.
I think that's the end of your line. That's the end of your line.
Okay,
That's the
very
end of
good.
your line. This is, you're not part of the ceremony, right? Right, so you'll have to wait. All right.
Have all C.A.R. members had an opportunity to present?
I'm going to open it up
Ladies
here
and
in just a
gentlemen,
minute.
this concludes our official ceremony. Members of the public are invited to continue to respectfully lay carnations. We ask, however, that you first allow our color guard to assemble and retire. On behalf of the Sons of the American Revolution, we wish you a safe, patriotic, and happy 4th of July. Color guard, please form and retire.
Regard, attention.
Shoulder hard. Right face. Forward. Heart.